Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another MWSA Writers Education Zoom session. Today, we're presenting the third installment of our Write Your Story series. If you missed any of our earlier recorded sessions, you'll find them on our website's Writer Education page, which is located under the Resources tab at the top of every web page on the website. Today's presenter is longtime MWSA member Jack Woodville London. Jack studied the craft of fiction at the Academy of Fiction at Saint Célé, France, and at Oxford University. Jack was also MWSA's first author of the year. His craft book, A Novel Approach, a short and lighthearted work on the conventions of writing, is designed to help writers who are setting out on the path to write their first book. Today's presentation will be about the characters, the conflict, and the first sentence, setting up your reader to turn pages. Over to you, Jack.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we can get the lesson up on the screen. What I want to do is talk about a problem that we as readers have that we as writers should not cause. You don't have to show me a show of hands or anything, but I suspect all of us have some version of the 20-page rule. You start reading a book that you've really been looking forward to, and it's dull. And you read 10 pages and you're going, maybe. And you're going 15 pages and I'm going, I don't remember who this character is. And by 20 pages, you're trying to decide whether to read it or not. If you paid for the book, especially if you bought it new, you may give it 30 pages. But if you're having trouble enjoying the first 15, 20, or 30 pages, or if you can't quite keep straight where it is, or you can't quite remember who all the characters are, it's probably because the writer, the author, did a sorry job of getting you engaged in the book. On the other hand, if you're the writer who wrote that book, you need to worry about whether your readers will continue reading it. And so what I want to talk about is the one way, it's not my way, it's a way to introduce the story. Page 1, line 1, sentence 1. And hopefully you will be writing something that will introduce what I call the character and the conflict in the very first sentence. You will set up your reader to turn the pages. And we're going to have some goals. I'm going to call them rules. And you'll see down in the corner of the next slide, some of this gets credit to Joe Badal. Joe is just a fantastic writer, but he's a very good teacher. He created what I call these first three rules. In your first sentence, Joe says you should grab your reader by the throat. That's a little graphic, but I get the picture. He says, don't use 10 words when 6 words will do, and don't use 2 sentences when 1 will do. And then he says, mind your point of view. That is, be aware of who it is that's speaking and whether the characters are speaking or whether they're omniscient, something like that. So let's take a look at that. Here are the rules. First sentence. What does it mean to grab the reader by the throat? I think he writes more of a thriller book than I do, but I think it means to have your reader gripped right off the bat. And that's the rule that we're going to try to create for you. Don't use 10 words when 6 will do. That is, be brief, be clear, be crisp. Don't use 2 sentences when 1 sentence will do. And then, of course, as I said, mind your point of view. Who is speaking? Are you writing from the character's point of view or the omniscient view or fly on the wall? So let's look at one of these. This is Joe's favorite opening sentence for any book, anywhere. Where's Papa going with that axe? Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. With those, what is 6 words, we get images. We know that someone is watching someone named Papa. So presumably, we can see in our mind's eye someone watching Papa, probably walking by the kitchen window, going somewhere unknown, carrying an axe. Does that give you a visual image of something that's about to happen? You can fill in for yourself what Papa looks like. You can fill in for yourself where Papa is coming from. You can fill in for yourself how this person sees Papa. But that axe stands out. Do you want to know where Papa is going with that axe? And although this is framed as a question, every time you write that first sentence should cause the reader to ask a question. What on earth is going to happen? So let's just kind of look at those and see what elements set that page up to cause the reader to turn the page. Imagery. What does the reader see in his or her mind's eye? If the reader doesn't see anything in his or her mind's eye, you have caused the reader to go to sleep with the very first sentence. If you have to fill in that blank of what you're looking at, you're doing a disservice to your reader. Conflict. Does the opening foreshadow that something eruptive is going to happen? Papa's going somewhere and he's going to do some damage with that axe. Character. Does the opening introduce someone about whom the reader wants to know more and who will play a role in the story? And does the opening cause the reader to ask the question, what's going to happen? We get every one of those elements in, let's see if we can go back up. We get every one of those elements. It's brief, it's clear, it has a character, it foreshadows something that's going to happen, and it makes the reader ask the same question. What's going to happen? I think what we're saying is when you write that first sentence, achieve these goals. Write something that is imagic, that is, that creates an image. Put in a conflict. Identify a character. You don't have to create character sketches. You just have to identify a character. It doesn't have to be the villain. It doesn't have to be the hero. It needs to be someone about whom the story will be involved. And cause the reader to ask a question, what's going to happen? What has happened? What's happening? Does that help you? John, are you keeping an eye on the questions? If someone has a burning question, we have two kinds of questions. We have the burning question and the discussion question. A burning question is one that says, I don't know what you're talking about. Stop, let's straighten this out. Ask it right now, and John may or may not catch it in the comments. Otherwise, let's hold them until the Q&A. Okay?
I'll be on the lookout for anyone on fire.
Okay. Or if the monitor catches fire, either way, that would be a good opening sentence. They all turned in to an MWSA seminar and their monitors caught on fire. Boing. Okay, here's another example. Take a moment and read that. This is all credit to me. Now, this is considerably more complex than Charlotte's axe. But here are the images we have. We have a wall stained at about the level of a man's chest. Does that conjure an image in your mind? Does that look like there's a post outside the room where someone's going to get tied or has been tied and he's been shot? If it doesn't, Alexander waited in the cramped cell. So we have a character and we have another character, Colonel Canales. Canales had shoved Alexander in the cramped cell. So we have a character and a conflict. We have Canales telling him Write a letter to someone you love, maybe your horse thieves. Here, spy. So Canales is taunting him. And in the end, we have, I am not a spy. So now we have not only an image, I hope, we have character, we have conflict, and we have a wee bit of character development. Someone's about to be shot for spying as an act of, what is it that we call that? Misfortune, undeserved misfortune. I am not a spy, and he's going to get shot for it. Does it ask the question, what's going to happen? Do you want to know what happens? Do you want to know what happens when they come back for Alexander? Do you want to know what happens when they take him out in the courtyard? Do you want to know how he got into this mess in the first place? Burning question. So, all of these are designed to point out imagery, brevity, character, and conflict that makes you want to return the page. And I'll give you another one. Are you ready for another one? If you're not, raise your hand. Okay, let's go to the next one. So let's break this one down. It's being written about a guy named President Vera Cruz. It doesn't take long to figure out that President Vera Cruz is nuts. His young wife had given birth to a cat. That's a visual image, not one that I want, but kind of interesting. As a result of unexpected consequence of experiments with sexual alchemy, alchemy is turning base metals into gold. I assume that sexual alchemy is designed to turn something into something, and it comes out as a cat. And he created a novel piece of ammunition that broke Newton's laws of physics, all of which caused this guy to think of himself as an adept and as an intellectual. So let's ask the same questions. Does it create imagery? In my mind's eye, I can see the young wife. I can sort of imagine giving birth to a cat. I cannot envision the experiments. And how does that relate to a novel explosive that broke one of Newton's laws of physics by creating a blast force precisely 6.56 feet from the muzzle? And the final image I'm left with is President Vera Cruz has this enormous ego, this image of himself that probably does not translate to the other things in that sentence. But do I want to find out what happens? Do I want to know if his wife really did give birth to a cat? Do I want to know what this weapon is? And do I want to see just how crazy President Vera Cruz is? So this one goes into my 10 or 15 page list. I would still read it a little bit further on to find out if it's fun, nuts, or absolutely intolerable. Does anybody want to have a burning question? Okay. Let's go with one more example. This principle is not just for fiction. Is there anyone on this screen who has not been in person to, or at the very least, been to an American military cemetery? All you have to do is read the word headstones, American Military Cemetery, and you know what you're looking at when you're reading that paragraph. You can see them in your own mind's eye. They're the same. They're pure. No obelisks, no tombs, no ostentation. And if you needed to, you could count them in rows and columns. Every one is the same. And then you get to those 240 tombs of the unknowns. What does this do that the others did not do? It's brief, it's clear, it creates an image. By there being a cemetery, you know that there are men who died and probably some women who died in combat, especially since it's in Carthage, Tunisia. It's overseas. What does that image do for you? It makes you a part of the story because you know what these cemeteries look like and you know what they mean. You're going to read this story just because you have become a part of it. Now, let's run backwards over these for just a second. Predictive action. It's predicting something that's going to happen in the future. Predictive action. A present vision of something that's going to happen in the future. Uncertain action. The only action that's predicted here is maybe you want to find out more about this nut job. And predictive action. Something that's going to happen in the future. In every case, you're asked to see something now, and you will be rewarded by continuing into the future when you're brought into the same scene again. What do I mean by that? Here's how you do this. This is as mechanical as I can make one of my classes. Identify in your book, in your story, in your poem, in your short story, in your play, the point where the conflict comes to a head. That is the resolution. That's the technical term. It's not the denouement, it's the resolution. You've been building all along to this point where the two clashing forces are going to clash, and you do not know where it's going to end. That's the resolution. It's where your hero and your villain clash. It's where your unit is trapped, where in a romance your bodice is ripped, and you, the reader, do not know how it's going to come out. Identify that for yourself and sit down and write it again. Change it and write it again. Change it and write it again. Change it and write it again until that part of your story is gripping and uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen when Papa gets to the axe with whoever he's going to axe. But something is, and when that part of the book comes up, it will be gripping and uncertain. When an enemy is trapped, the outcome of that battle is uncertain, but you know it's going to lead to some graves. In a romance, there's going to be some heaving and some loving and some wanting and some missing, but you don't know if the right couple is going to wind up together. You don't know how this will end. This probably will be anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 to 80% of the way into your book. That is the resolution point of your conflict. It's not the resolution of the conflict, it is where the conflict comes to a head. Once you have that to a point where if the reader makes it that far, the reader is going to be heaving and sighing. If I can get it up there. Then you go back and write that first page. Write the first sentence or the first paragraph as I said, to include a clash of characters, a clash of circumstances, of romances, something that will tell the reader when they get to that resolution, I know what's happening. I've seen this before. Write it, that first page, that first sentence, that first paragraph, until it is absolutely clear that it identifies what the book will be about, who is in it, and makes the reader want to be a part of it. And make it brief and present an image of your event. I think nearly everyone I've given classes to where I've said, write the book first and then go back and write your first sentence has thought I was nuts, because everyone says I write by the seat of my pants. I write the first sentence and then I write the book. I've never been successful in doing that. I write a first sentence as a placeholder. I write a first page as a placeholder. But as often as not, by the time I've written the resolution or finished an entire manuscript, that first page that I wrote just doesn't fit. As often as not, I've utterly torn it out and thrown it away and written what will foreshadow that resolution. I compare this to telling a joke. Has anyone ever told a joke by starting off by accident with the punchline? No, you write the setup. But if you don't know the punchline, you can't tell the joke. I compare what we're describing on this screen right now to knowing the punchline, knowing the setup, and then going back and writing the setup briefly to begin the joke. Do it last, do not do it first. So here's how not to do it. Those of you who have been in my classes before are probably sick of the Da Vinci Code. Jim Tritton noted that I spelled it the Da Vinci Cod, so I apologize for that. I did it on purpose. Read this. Okay, let's talk about it for a moment. We can create an image. We have someone called Jacques Saunier staggering through the Grand Gallery. Does it improve the brevity to call him a renowned curator? Does it improve the clarity of this image to say the ceiling was vaulted or that the archway was vaulted? Would it be just as good to say the curator Saunier staggered through the Grand Gallery of the museum? I think it's too long. Secondly, he lunged for the nearest painting he could see at Caravaggio. I can see that. A man go staggering through the museum, lunging for a painting, presumably on the wall. He grabs the gilded frame. I can get that. The 76-year-old man heaved the masterpiece toward himself until it tore from the wall. Can you visualize that? And then he collapsed backward in a heap beneath the canvas. Can you visualize that? Does this introduce the conflict? Let's talk about that a moment. When you put in the word 76-year-old man, staggering, heaving, and collapsing, I cannot tell whether it's an obituary or a medical emergency. Does it matter how old Saunier was at this stage? Is it too much information? Does it matter that he heaved the masterpiece toward himself instead of just tearing it from the wall? And does it matter that he collapsed in a heap backward beneath the canvas? Or is it all that matters to this is to say that he staggered through the gallery, pulled a Caravaggio off the wall, and collapsed on the floor? Even when you make it more brief like that, does it foreshadow what's going to happen? Or is it an obituary? Or is it an old man with a medical emergency? Do you care what's going to happen? Now, in this book, you probably do because you heard about it from your friends. You know that it all is in the Louvre, that you're going to see places that you know about from history. But in terms of setting up the conflict of this book, it does not introduce a man who's going to be with us long. It does not introduce any of the characters who will be the centerpieces of the book. It does not foreshadow that he's been assaulted or that there are, what is he, an albino giant who's on the rampage? It's just an old guy who staggers through a museum dressed up by calling a Caravaggio a masterpiece. Another bit of unnecessary stuff. So let's see what I think about this. Does it present a conflict or tension or just pity? Does it make you concerned about the curator? Or maybe you're concerned about the painting. Does it point to a probable antagonist or even the existence of an antagonist? Or is this just a story of an old guy having a medical emergency in a museum? Does it make you want to know what happens next?
Jack, you do have a comment. Tom says it's better to flip both sentences than write odd for a renowned curator. Then he says start with the action, then surprise them who did it.
I think that is a very good comment. You can make it brief and you can start with the action. And you probably should start with the action. Can you save this passage by doing that? Does it anticipate that there was a murder in place? Nothing about Saunier's body says he's been assaulted. He's just staggering as he would if he had a heart attack or a stroke. Or if he just fell. I mean, I don't know anybody in this group that's 76, but I've seen some people that age who just fall. More comments. This is your point to make your comments because now we come to the part of the Jack London story that everybody hates. It's your exercise. How are we doing for the clock? Oh, we got plenty of time. I would like to propose at this point that you take out whatever you have to write with, a pen, a pad, an iPad, a notebook, whatever you want to do. Take about 10 or 15 minutes at the tops and write an opening sentence or paragraph of your work in progress. Apply the principles. Write something that creates an image. Write something that presents a central character or conflict or both. And write it in a way that will make the reader want to know what's about to happen. The word boing is actually the word going. What's going to happen? Raise your hands if you have questions or comments about what I'm proposing you do as an exercise. And the rest of us, what you've proposed is your number one sentence or first paragraph. Val, I thought you were in the car.
No, I was traveling, but I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who would like to go first? Okay, Wes, you have to unmute yourself.
You have to read my writing. He woke in an ambulance, drowsy from his slumber, and confused as to his surroundings before he realized he was in an ambulance. He was. Okay.
Is that your reading?
No.
Okay.
Maybe better. I'm trying to read my scratching here. Maybe I
Are
should
you a
go on
doctor?
a little later on.
Okay, we'll come back. Who wants to go while Wes is straightening out his writing?
See,
Tom?
Tom, yeah, Tom Morris, it is his hand.
Yeah, go. Yes, you're muted.
Tom, you've been called on. If you're ready to give your hand is up, go right
Okay.
ahead.
So, yeah, I just wrote this. It's scratchy.
That's okay.
Ready? I thought he had a gun. Joey laughed as smoke rose from the bullet holes in Rocco's chest.
There you are. We have an action. We have a character. We have another character. We have a visual image. Is there anything that anyone would add to that to make you want to see what happens in the next sentence?
I thought he had a gun. Joey laughed as the smoke rose from the bullet holes in Rocco's chest.
So the next sentence to me asks, does Joey himself have a gun, or did he just watch something happen? And why did he laugh when there was smoke? But they make me want to find out.
Sure, yeah.
Wes, are you ready yet?
Okay.
Okay. Mark, you're coming up. You're on deck.
He woke in an ambulance, drowsy from his slumber, and confused as to his surroundings. Before he realized he was in an ambulance, he last realized he was on the front line. Drowsily, he read the tag on his raincoat, Psychoneurosis.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Drowsily, he read the tag on his raincoat, Psychoneurosis.
Psychoneurosis. Okay. Now, my question for you, Wes, is there a reason not to give this man a name? Is there a reason why this person is he instead of giving him a name?
Oh, I just use he. I could give a name.
To me, if you give someone a name, the way that Tom gave Joe a name, it makes it personal. It makes you feel like you know who you're talking about. And then when you add adjectives and gerunds, you blur the imagery. Do we need to know that he's drowsy? He's in an ambulance. He woke in, Wes woke in an ambulance, looked around and realized where he was, and then read the tag on his uniform chest. Psychoneurosis. I thought I was on the front line. Something. But you're getting in that he was in battle. He's been pulled out of battle. He's in an ambulance. And everything else you add to that blurs your image, especially words like drowsily. Okay? I had Mark has a hand up and Thomas has a hand up. Yours is first. Are you ready, Mark?
I'm ready. Okay, mine's not as dramatic as most people's because it's memoir. So I'm not getting shot or shooting people or there's no bullet holes.
Is it an autobiography?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a memoir.
Okay.
I'm ready, Stoneface. A miasma of shampoos, hair dyes, sprays, and perfumes wafted in the air, clawing at my sinuses, the chemical vapors burning my throat and eyes. Women chattered and shrieked at each other's body jokes, raising their voices to be heard above the high-speed whine of dryers. I was seated on a leatherette bench as close to the front door as I could get and still be inside. I luxuriated in the momentary draft of fresh air when someone entered or left and looked longingly at the relative quiet I could see in the sunny parking lot. I was waiting for my estranged wife's stylist, my barber, to finish her last client and usher me to her station.
What happens if you make, I was seated on the red leather banquet first? It
Okay.
identifies you, it gives you a place, and it doesn't make me question what all of these perfumes and aromas are.
Okay. Yeah.
Try to flip that, and I'll come back to you in a minute. And
Okay.
Thomas, are you ready? You're muted. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I don't see a little microphone by Thomas. It might be a technical issue on his computer or something.
Okay. Eva, are you ready? You've got a hand up. Let's hear about it.
Okay, my tears mixed with the rain as the sound of the bugle filled the air. The shots ringing through the air were welcome sounds to the small crowd gathered to write the final chapter in a 44-year journey.
I love it. I love it. You have tears, you have rain, you have the sound of the volley. By then, I know where you are. And then you make it personal. What happens next? Okay, what happens if you say, and I began to remember the first day of our 44-year journey? All those memories that come back to you at the end of a funeral.
Well, this is a funeral for someone that died 44 years before.
Ah, okay. So let's get that out there. Read it again.
My tears mixed with the rain as the sound of the bugle filled the air. The shots ringing out were welcome sounds to the small crowd gathered to write the final chapter in a 44-year journey.
To write the final chapter, period. It was 44 years ago, but it could have been today. Just an idea. But I think you're as clear as a bell. Who's up? Bob, are you ready? You're muted.
Yep, I'm ready.
Let's hear it.
The wind tore through the sails, shrieking like a banshee, while the mast and yards groaned under the fury of the gale. The schooner, heavy with a load of lumber bound for Fall River, pitched and rolled like a wounded beast. She was a rugged, three-masted tern, proven seaworthy and proud. But tonight she was a thing possessed. The sea was a thing possessed. Captain George War, a man of iron and sterling reputation, stood at the helm, his knuckles white on the wheel. Yet even he could not command the storm. The ocean raged, hell-bent on claiming its ransom. Fear gripped the crew. Hope had vanished into the howling dark, and faith in the ship or captain was swallowed by the tempest.
Wow. There were some adjective phrases that I thought did not add at this point what I needed to know about what was happening. I needed to know that there was wind. I needed to know that you were on a boat. I needed to know the captain was there. And I needed to know that the boat was or was not going down. I probably did not need to know much about the masts, how many there were, whether there was I didn't need to know it was a gale. I didn't need to know if it was carrying lumber. I'm just trying to cut this down to the action, if you will, and the risk. But I like the imagery. The imagery is great. Okay, Mark, are you back? You're muted.
Am I unmuted?
And you are now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready now.
Do it.
Okay. I'm still not sure about this though. I'm ready, Stoneface. I was seated on a red leatherette bench as close to the front door as I could get and still be inside. I was waiting for my estranged wife's stylist, my barber, to finish her last client. A miasma of shampoos, hair dyes, sprays, and perfumes wafted in the air, clawing at my sinuses, burning my throat and eyes. Women chattered and shrieked at each other's body jokes, raising their voices to be heard above the high-speed whine of dryers. I luxuriated in the momentary draft of fresh air when someone entered or left and looked longingly at the relative quiet I could see in the parking lot.
I loved everything until the last sentence. If I had written that last sentence, I would have simply said, I wanted to leave. I wanted out of there
Okay,
instead of luxuriating in the fresh air and looking across to the parking lot. I would
Okay.
have blunted that and said, I wanted out.
got it.
Is that what you
Yeah.
wanted, was to get out of there?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Say it.
Okay.
Be brief. Be blunt. And then what's going to happen in the future?
Okay. Do you want me to read or you want me to tell you?
No, I just want to know what it is you're trying to foreshadow for us.
Okay. This is a memoir about discovering in my 70s that I'm autistic. And so my estranged wife at that point had complained to her hairstylist that I had an expressionless face. And that was the beginning of a long quest to make this discovery.
Okay.
So that's where we're going.
We're crowding up on our hour, and I don't mind staying as long as people want to stay. I'm not sure John wants to stay as long as people want to stay. But Tom, are you ready to try it again?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is a quasi-autobiographical fictional book. And the opening sentence says, "Holy shit, Batman," a voice crackled over the intercom. "It's already next year." It was 12:15 a.m., 01 January 1971, and we had missed the celebration at the O Club for sure. So that's the first sentence.
Good. It tells you everything except where you are, and I think I know where you are.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. Yeah. As I said, we're at our hour, and so I want to wrap the conclusion, but after doing that, I'm willing to stay on. If for anyone who wants to stay and work on their sentences or ask questions or fuss at me. Frankie, you've got a hand up. Did you want to try and read one real quickly? You're muted.
Okay. The shrill of the horn sounded through the hallways of the elementary school. We knew the drill. Leave your desks. Take nothing with you. Follow the teacher out of the classroom. Turn left down the linoleum tile stairs to the school basement. Line up along the hallway wall. Sit down. Put your head between your knees and wait. Shall I continue?
Nope. I knew exactly where you were. The only thing I would suggest is the shrill of the horn, as opposed to the horn blared, but the shrill of turns something active into something passive. And you want to stay as active as you can. Are you with me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run back and give you the last slide for point of reference real quickly. Here we go through that artist studio again. Here's our conclusion. The features of a reader-grabbing first sentences. You can read this. Imagery.
Sorry,
Simplicity.
Jack, can you make that bigger? Can you make
Yes.
it? Yeah, sorry. I have a big screen and it's hard to read. That's why.
There we go. Is that better? That's as big as I can make it.
No, that's perfect. Thanks.
So imagery is self-evident. You're either going to see what you're saying, or the reader will see what you've written, or they won't. Stay with it until you have an image. Simplicity. This is not brevity, but also clarity. And several times I said we didn't need to know too many details. I don't need to know about all of the perfumes. I don't need to know about drowsiness. I don't need to know that the ship had lumber. I just needed to know that it was a ship. Does it foreshadow the conflict? A pirate walks into a bar. Okay, you know it's a bar joke. You know that something's going to happen with a pirate. Does it make the reader want to know what happens? You have to build some excitement into that sentence. Joe laughed. I thought the gun wasn't loaded as he looked at the bullet holes in Fred's chest. And then this is the big one. Does it live up to the story? Are you going to write a dynamite story, a dynamite memoir, a dynamite novel, a dynamite story about combat, about the loss of someone 44 years before? Or are you just going to kind of waft along and hope that people enjoy it? Put some editing into making the story absolutely live up to the opening sentence, and make the opening sentence live up to the story. And you know what happens? When you do that, when the reader comes to that part of the resolution and remembers your opening scene, your reader will be pleased to be a part of that scene that's unfolding. It'll be a deja vu. I guarantee it. If you will have that opening scene be a progenitor of a resolution story later on that is a mirror of that opening scene, and they're both exciting, they're both imagic, your readers are going to feel like, I know what's going on here. What is about to happen? And the question they've had at the back of their minds from the moment they read that opening paragraph is about to get an answer. And they're going to flip that page until the light goes out. So that's kind of what I have to share with you. I'm back to the point of offering to stay on with you as long as you like. It's Sunday. I'm going to miss services today. I'll say it that way. Anyone? Tom has written the comment, I have 10 books with grabber first lines. I believe you.
I raised my hand right technically. Hello,
Hello?
can I read you my sentence?
Absolutely. Phyllis, I haven't gotten to visit with you in a couple of years. How nice to see you.
Thank you. Okay, I just lost it. And the truth is that my husband, who I sometimes write with, I just lost it. I cannot believe it. I didn't really lose it. I saved it. I just.
Pull it back up.
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, so here's the sentence. Heinz Prosnitz struggled to get the heavy package to the door of the post office. The Gestapo must be staking out this place, he thought. The only Prague post office from which to send packages, the Nazi concentration camp Terezin.
Let's read the entire thing again. Read it slowly for me, and then let's talk about it. Will you do that for me, please?
Absolutely. Heinz Prosnitz struggled to get the heavy package through the door of the post office. The Gestapo must be staking out this place, he thought. The only Prague post office from which to send packages to the Nazi concentration camp Terezin.
Okay. I like what's going on. I would consider saying struggled to get the package in the door of the only post office in Prague that would send the package.
Okay. My husband.
And then a second explanation. I had to get it to the concentration camp. Something like that. Some urgency. What you've done is you shifted the urgency to getting it in the door instead of getting it to the concentration camp.
Okay. I got it. I know what to do. I mean,
You don't have to agree with me.
no. You just, I understand. The urgency that his friends desperately need.
Exactly.
2 calories yeah, I got it.
Okay, okay. Eva, did you raise your hand? Would you like to? No? You can, you know.
Jack,
Carol?
I'm just going to say goodbye at this point. Thanks. This was great. Got to run.
Tom, it's good to
Keep
see you.
writing.
Thank you for your contributions.
Yeah, keep writing, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.
Right on. I think Tom did one thing that I would like, if for those of us who want to stay a little bit, I would like to suggest and share. Let's go around and tell each other the titles of books or works that come to mind to you now in light of this exercise that lit you up on page one and paid you off later on in the book that you're glad you read and that meet this example. Because the examples I gave are very brief examples, there are not very many of them. And I love reading entire books. And if you can do that, let's do it. Who wants to mention a book that you have read in the past, or a work, or a poem, or a play, or even a movie, where you're given a little bit of foreplay before you consummate your act, if I may? And you're very welcome to look at any book on my shelf.
Can we grab the third one over on the left, please?
Third one over on the left. Violence Over the Land by Ned Blackhawk.
What's the opening sentence in that one? Just out of curiosity?
I'm turning past the introduction. Here's the
Okay.
opening sentence. Once the battle had ended, their work was nearly done. You know there's a battle, you know it's people, and you know that they considered it work. Spoils still needed to be divided, wounds bandaged, men and horses accounted for. So that takes you into an era of battle in which there were men and horses and spoils. You know, in the olden days, people engaged in combat for profit. We're not supposed to be doing that now. But did you get the image? There was a battle. After the battle, they were staying to collect the spoils and bandage the wounded, take care of the horses. It's very brief. Ned Blackhawk has written a number of books that have to do with Native Americans and the difficulties that academic scholars have today in neutrally assessing the history of conflict that wound up taking most of the Native American lands and turning them into American lands.
Jack, I was going to say that it's interesting to ask the question on the first line because two of probably the most famous and talked about first line, one of them is Call Me Ishmael.
Yes.
And the other one I think of is It Was the Best of Times, It Was the Worst of Times.
Absolutely.
And those we kind of remember, but I think other than those exceptions, most of us remember the entire book. And as you mentioned at the outset, that first line is what keeps someone from putting the book back on the shelf in the library or whatever that gets them interested and hooks them.
And certainly with A Tale of Two Cities, you have this payoff as you arrive in Paris and things start unraveling, that it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I thought that was brilliant. Phyllis, you're commenting. You're muted.
Morley was dead. This doesn't mean anything to anyone?
It doesn't to me, but I'm willing to learn.
On. Okay, it goes on to say there was no question about that. Scrooge had been his chief mourner, his blah blah blah, his blah blah blah, and his blah blah blah.
Our most famous lines.
Mitch, I'm gonna take the knife and stick you.
Please do.
Third book on the right. I was 15 years old, or was it 20, when I was thrust onto the stage of world history. This is the novel about a man who was a spy for both Napoleon and the people on the other side of in Wellington. And he ultimately goes to Napoleon's army and asks them for a pension for having spied, and they throw him out. So he goes to Wellington and asks for a pension. And then the book unfolds from there. Was he a spy for whose side, or was he just a scoundrel? And he was only 15. Someone needs to come and help me with all these books. I've got far too many of them.
All right, I have one to share.
Yes.
Okay, everyone is born with some special talent, and Eliza Summers discovered early on that she had two, a good sense of smell and a good memory. She used the first to earn a living and the second to recall her life.
I love it. I think that's brilliant.
It's Isabella Allende, Daughter of Fortune. It's one of my
Yes.
favorite books, yeah. But it sets it up so that you know it's not really a memoir, it's fiction, but it sounds like a memoir the whole way through because it's this character recalling her life.
There's absolutely no reason to write a memoir without putting it in narrative storytelling style after the manner of a fiction book.
Mm-hmm.
People like stories. Stories are powerful. I'm reading, do y'all know Rick Atkinson? He wrote all of the Army World War II trilogy, and now he's doing the Revolutionary War trilogy. He writes his entire books without footnotes. He doesn't break up your concentration with little numbers and things at the bottoms of the page. If you're worried about where he got the information, read his bibliography. But he writes thoroughly detailed stories as stories. He gives them characters. He doesn't call units by these prolonged unit numbers, D55-7 Alpha Dog. He uses ordinary people, second lieutenants and corporals and truck drivers, and he puts you in the middle of what he's doing. That excerpt I gave you from the cemetery in Tunisia, that was from Rick Atkinson. And that's the essence of what we're trying to do, is to tell a great story and then tell people you're about to read a great story and here's what it's going to be about. And you will pay them off at the end when they come back to that. You can even repeat the very words. You know, I won't be embarrassed to tell you that in the novel, 200 pages later, this poor guy winds up in that jail cell outside the wall where the stain is on the wall. And that book is in its second printing in only a month. So
Looks
I'm proud
like
of
it. Sorry, Jack, you have another hand raised, Thomas.
I missed it. I do not see that. There you are, Thomas.
Hi, thanks again. I don't know if this is a really dumb question, but if you took a TV show like Seinfeld, how would that turn into a book? Would it be a collection of short stories, or how would that have a start to finish? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, in theory, a book from any source should have what is called a through line. You should be able to identify a single theme from the very beginning to the very end. And you should be able to use that as a touchstone at any point in the book or at any point in the story. Again, pirate goes into a bar. He's got a hook for a hand and a peg leg and a patch over one eye. And the barkeep says, "What'll it be?" And Pirate Pete says, "I'll have a grog." Well, for the rest of that joke, you're coming with a pirate. You know you're going to have something to do with a patch, a hook, and a peg leg. That is the through line of the Pirate Pete story. Seinfeld probably would have a through line that is the show that is about nothing. Seinfeld, but I don't know that I have the capacity to write a through line for it. The only time they ever even came close to a through line was the scene near the end of the series. They're all in the airplane flying to Paris, and the plane starts to crash, and they all admit to each other how they feel about each other. They wind up in jail being tried for their many malefactions over the years. But I don't know that.
Oh, yeah, the court.
Yeah.
The court.
All the people they've wronged and humiliated over the years come in and tell them about it.
Well, let me just say where I read the first line from is kind of a quasi autobiography, but I'm going on the theory, and nobody can hopefully take this and run with it, because I still haven't run with it yet. But my life has been a series of seemingly unrelated events that the only thing they have in common is that they all happened to me.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
a very Seinfeld thing.
yeah. So as a result, by default, it has to be kind of discombobulated, you know?
Okay, are you writing a memoir?
Yeah, but it's kind of stylized. It's memoir, but it's fictional memoir, but it's based on my life.
So one of the things that distinguishes an interesting memoir or autobiography from a not so interesting one is that at some point in your life, something happened to you, with you, about you, that you thought, I've got to write this down and tell somebody. That is your through line. You know, Wes's guy woke up in an ambulance. That may be the most frightening, exhilarating, dangerous point in that person's life. And at some point, that fellow who's in the ambulance will write that story, and 2/3 of the way through, he will walk to the front line with his troops, and the shelling will drive him absolutely crazy, and he'll wind up in that ambulance. All of these things happened to him. He went to school, he played baseball, he dated girls, he wanted a jalopy, he got drafted, he got sent to the army, he got shot at, he got scared to death. The things that happened to him is the through line. But there has to be an event in that person's life that makes his life something you want to read about. And if it was being in the ambulance after being in combat, that's where it starts.
Well, what story is that again? What?
No, that was one that Wes read his opening sentences to us very first thing today.
Oh, I arrived late, so let me know when I
Tom,
can
you were
buy it.
late. Wes, you want to
I'll
read
wait.
it again?
You've got two other hands raised, Jack, and
Okay.
before
For
we,
some reason, I'm not seeing the hands raised.
okay, you got Bob and Phyllis are waiting.
Okay.
Before you pick one of them, and before too many folks leave, I have in the chat session, I have put in two links. The first one is how you'll get to this recording once it's edited and put online, and all the other the past Write Your Story and Writers Education
Excellent.
Zooms, as well as the schedule for those that are upcoming. And the next one that we have coming up, by the way, is Bob Dorr. I think Bob has left us, but Bob is going to do a presentation on the 27th of July. But that first link will have both the schedule and the videos where you can watch the past events. And then the second link that I have in the chat session is how you can join us in Kansas City for our annual conference and awards banquet, if anyone is interested. So it's Bob and Phyllis that have their hands raised.
Yep. Let's do them in that order, Bob.
Yeah, Jack, I wanted to say thanks for your comments with regards to detail, short sentences, and urgency. One of my favorite authors is James Jones.
Yes.
You know, the trilogy From Here to Eternity, Thin Red Line,
Yes.
Whistle. And I thought it was really interesting when you said, you know, pick a book off your shelf, because From Here to Eternity is 900 pages, right?
Yeah.
But his opening to the book is one sentence, and I just wanted to read it real quick because it sort of
Do, please.
puts it into perspective for me. When he finished packing, he walked out onto the third floor porch of the barracks, brushing the dust from his hands, a very neat and deceptively slim young man in the summer khakis that were still early morning fresh. And that's how he introduces you to Pruitt, who's the main guy. So yeah, point well taken. Makes a lot of sense. I just want to say thanks.
Well, thank you. Phyllis?
Two things. One is to read you the very beginning of the book Max in the House of Spies, A Tale of World War II by Adam Gidwitz, in which he says, once there was a boy who had two immortal creatures living on his shoulders. This was the fourth most interesting thing about him. And then I wanted to ask you if I was able to get a sense of urgency into my opening by writing, Heinz Primus struggled to get the heavy package to the door of the post office. His Zionist youth group friends needed these few extra calories. This made it worth the risk of the Gestapo, the only Prague office for which to send packages to the Nazi concentration camp Terezin.
More urgent than before. I want you to try to shift the urgency away from the person carrying the package and getting it in the door to the urgency about there being one post office that would get this package to the concentration camp. That seems to me to be the urgency.
Okay.
Does that make any sense at all?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you know how to get in touch with me?
No.
So I'm going to type my email down in the message thing.
Okay.
And you and anyone who wants me to grade your paper, you want me to send something to me to read and send back and chat, do it.
Okay.
I'm happy to.
So where's your email?
It's in the comment. Oh, I don't think I posted it, did I? Did it go up? It's in the comment.
Nope, not yet.
Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
You have to make sure it's going to everyone.
Oh, I see. So where's the thing where I choose who gets it?
It's a drop-down box at the top of when you open up the chat session.
The chat rather than the comments.
Everyone.
I'm scrambling to find my email. I can probably copy it in for you, Jack.
Everyone. Did that do it?
Uh-huh.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And if someone wants me to read something you're working on, send it to me. Okay.
All right. Very good, Jack.
John, I'm going to
Thank
turn
you.
it back to you. I have kept everybody a half an hour over, so I apologize for that.
I think you did good. You stopped pretty much. We started about 5 minutes late, and so this is good. The folks that wanted to stay are here, and I think that worked out perfectly, Jack. And
Yeah.
on behalf of all of us who are here and the ones that are going to watch it in the future, thanks for helping out. We really appreciate it. And I hope I'm gonna see you in Kansas City, right?
You're going to see me in Kansas City.
Okay, there we go. And
Really,
remember, all of you, get your hotel rooms and your registrations done. We can't
Yeah,
wait to see you.
I need to do all of that. The MWSA annual meeting is like a family reunion where nobody fights.
There you go.
It's really worth doing. I hope you'll come.
Yes, there has been a few beers and other adult beverages purchased at the bar for those so inclined. So anyway, thanks again, Jack. I appreciate
You're
that
welcome.
very much. I'm going to stop the recording and then we can tie things up.